That's all I got, y'all. That's all I got. This one gave Lee Evans vibes. It gave 2019 vibes, 2020 vibes. No, I mean, it gave like previous playoff loss vibes. And it's interesting. Finally get back to doing instant reactions. And of course, it's in a moment of this, but a moment like this, but it's crazy. Like, let, let's just say the quiet part out loud, okay? Um, for the national media that will never pick up this show, but hopefully they'll hear from somebody else. Something has to be said about John Harbaugh, right? Like, we can't, you can't lose. You can't look really good in the regular season, really good. Like like I said in the past stream, unstoppable. Look, I mean, even in points of this game, you hand the ball off, unstoppable at times. And then one player goes off the field, Zay Flowers in particular, and it all dries up. This team has the same excuses, the same problems, the same frustrations that they've had for 7. How do you go 7 straight years with the same frustrations? That to me is coaching. Now, let me just go ahead and let's get it out the way. Did Lamar Jackson, the MVP, at least the 2-time MVP, play great? No. In the first half, at least, right? And I'll give you the first drive of the second half. But at the same time, he turned it on in the second half, and it's this, but it was the same story. Like it's so funny. The score was what, 21-10, I think it was 21-10 at halftime. And my wife looked at me and she said, "What's wrong with the Ravens?" And I said, "This is the same thing they do in their second game of the playoffs every single year. At least if they're remotely healthy. This is what they do. They come out, they turn the ball over a couple of times. They get down, they start pressing, they figure it out at halftime. Something happens at halftime. I can't figure out what it is because coaches have changed, but the players for the most part have stayed the same, at least the leaders. So it almost makes me feel like the players kind of take over at halftime. But anywho, something changes at halftime every single time. They rally back, they look like a completely different team. They come back, but they run out of time every single time. Go back and look at a majority of the losses where Lamar Jackson has finished the games. We're talking the Chargers game in 2018. We're talking the Titans game in 2019. We're talking there was another game. I want to believe it was what, 2022. The loss they had in 2022. I'm not even recollecting who the loss was to, but every single time it's turn the ball over, get frustrated, press, drop the ball, dropping the ball for the receivers. Still, I mean, all of these things. Like, does this sound familiar to you? A couple of turnovers by the quarterback who rarely ever turns the ball over, in most games. Dropped catches by receivers. Maybe a lack of running the ball. I don't know if that was necessarily the indication in this game, but there was some times where they kind of got away from it. It felt like when it was working. But I won't blame that per se. You have a rah halftime speech, I guess, and then you come back, you're firing on all cylinders again, like you should have been at the beginning of the game, And somehow you come back, you make it a game, but you just run out of time. You just run out of time. That's almost every loss that we've seen. Let's be honest. Let's go back. Let's go back even to last year. And this is probably the game I'm blanking on for whatever reason. The AFC Championship game, right? You get down in that game. You look out of sorts. You don't look prepared. You don't look like you belong there. You look like a number 6, number 7 seed, borderline number 1. I mean, nowhere near number 1 seed. You figure it out in the second half. You literally stop everybody in the second half on defense for the most part. The offense gets going, but you simply just run out of time because you played one half of football. And it's the same story, the same story. So my question is, and I'm going to get to this game here in a minute, but my question is, when are we going to start holding John Harbaugh accountable? Because I know the first thing we want to do is hold Lamar accountable. And my issue with holding Lamar accountable is not the fact of holding him accountable. Did he have a good game? No. Would we be in a better position without the 2 turnovers? Yes. But once again, like we talked about before, Lamar has to play a perfect game. Perfect. There's no room for error on this team. It's Lamar Jackson put on the Superman cape, and that's about it. You got receivers dropping the football every time it hits January. Every time it hits January. Every time the calendar flips to January, your receivers can't catch the football anymore. Now it comes into question, how good are your receivers really? But that's another aspect of it too. Your receivers can't catch the ball. Your number 1 tight end, the same dude that we've been sitting here vouching for 7 years, is a top tight end in this league. When you need him the most, where's he at? He dropping the ball too, literally and figuratively. This game, we talking about fumbles. This game, you got a chance to tie the game, to right every. We talking about the same guy who fumbled the possession before. You got a chance to right your wrong, catch the ball on the 2-point conversion, right? You catch the ball on the 2-point conversion. More than likely, with the way the defense is playing, you're going into overtime. More than likely, with the way the defense was playing. Now, who's to say the defense would have been able to get a big stop at the end of the game? But more than likely, with the way the defense is playing, you're going to overtime. There's nothing guaranteed, but more than likely. And you can't catch that one. And like I said, it felt Lee Evans-esque. For those of you who don't remember the perfect dime that Joe Flacco put on Lee Evans' chest, and he didn't fall to the ground with the ball, instead he tried to get his 2 feet down, and the defender, I mean, this one was more wide open. This one was a little bit easier. And I don't even want to hear, well, Lamar should have made a better throw. You can say that, but you got 2 hands on the ball, number 1, as a receiver, as a supposed top tight end in this league. But at the same time, not only did you get 2 hands on the football, right? You've been making sliding catches all darn year. So I don't even want to hear about how you can't catch the ball from your back. You can't catch the ball sliding. You've been sliding, making catches for first downs all freaking year long. So I don't want to hear that either. But back to the point at hand. The Ravens had the same problems that they've had since 2018. And it's interesting. There's only a couple of constants. I think you've had some of the same guys. Of course, you've had Lamar Jackson at quarterback during those times, right? So is it a Lamar Jackson problem? You have to act, you have to, full disclosure, objectively ask that question. But at the same time, you have to ask, is it a John Harbaugh problem? Because although John Harbaugh had a lot of success in the playoffs at the beginning of his tenure with a Hall of Fame failed defense, still, even some of those runs took a little bit of luck. and luck wasn't always on the Ravens' side. And I think we have to ask this question. And I mean, I know as Ravens content creators, we've been asking this question for a couple years now because we've seen this same thing happen again. Why is your team not prepared, John Harbaugh? Right? Why is it that Lamar is coming out feeling as if he's got to put a Superman cape on John Harbaugh? Let's even bring into question EDC. Why? Right? If he's got so much help on the offensive end, he got 9 Pro Bowlers, so they claim. Not all on the offensive end, but you're missing your Pro Bowl receiver. I get that. But you do have at least a former Pro Bowl tight end, right? You got a Pro Bowl running back. What's going on? You got Pro Bowl linemen. So what's going on? Why is your team never prepared for their second game specifically in the playoffs? It's not the first game. They come out typically and look pretty good. Like, honestly, it looks like they're going to turn the corner. But if you base everything off of the first game of the playoffs for the Baltimore Ravens, but the second game, whether it's in the divisional round, whether it's in the AFC Championship game, that tends to be the game where they have the most issues. Now, I know 2019 was one where you were number 1 seed and you lost in the divisional round, right? We all remember that one. But even still, you can't string 2 good games together. And I talked about that in the last live stream. I'm like, this might be the time where you do, and you come out and you do the same thing again, right? Now, like we said before, I mean, the Bills' offense didn't light anybody up. The Bills' offense didn't set the world on fire. But it seems like when you get to the playoffs, opposing offenses don't have to do too much against the Baltimore Ravens. For as good of a defense as they are, and at least as they play at times, no turnovers, right? No turnovers. You can't force a turnover. That didn't really feel like they were getting sacks either. Barely felt like they were getting pressure at times. Now, you're stopping the run. We'll take that. But it's just crazy. Like, it's just crazy. And once again, it begs the question of these receivers. We gotta open this discussion back up because Isaiah Likely is your best receiver tonight with 4 receptions for 73 yards and a TD. And that was that late TD that he had, right? I mean, Bateman had 4 for 66. Andrews had 5 for 61. And I mean, we can count the drops on a lot of these guys, right? Derrick Henry had a drop early in the game. Of course, Mark Andrews had a couple, most notably the one at the end of the game. But it calls into question. Now, I get it. I get it. The first thing we're gonna say is, but Zay wasn't in the game, right? Our number 1 guy, he wasn't there. Our number 1 guy, our guy who we depend on in these situations, he wasn't there, right? Now, we can talk about the AFC Championship game last year if we want to talk about Zay's production at times, but at least playoff production. But once again, it goes back to it. Zay plays well throughout the whole season, and then the AFC Championship game is what the AFC Championship game was. But it calls into question once again, like I told you, it calls into question these receivers. Rashad Bateman, you just paid him in the offseason, and it's not that I don't think he's a good receiver. It's not that I don't even think he's got potential to be that guy, I guess. But defense, and can I tell y'all? I'm gonna reveal a secret to y'all. I got a secret for y'all about how defenses defend the Ravens and why the playoffs look a little bit different than the regular season. And especially when you don't have Zay Flowers on the field. So I'm gonna fill y'all in with this secret. Opposing teams are scared of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, especially if you don't have Zay Flowers in the game. And we've seen it the last couple of weeks. We saw. I mean, last week the offense took a little bit of time to get going to figure out what they wanted to do without Zay Flowers being in the game. But realistically, we have to be honest about this. Opposing defenses and opposing defensive coordinators are not scared of the Ravens wide receivers once again. And we've talked about this time and time again. We talked about this when Hollywood Brown was here. So it's amazing when we go back and we think about the last 7 years of Ravens football. We've talked about this every single season. Every single season, we've had this conversation. Opposing defenses are not afraid, and let's be honest and let's be clear. It's not that opposing defenses are not afraid of Lamar Jackson's ability to pass. Opposing defenses are afraid, or are not afraid, I should say. Opposing defenses are not afraid of our wide receiving talent. And sometimes our tight ends, especially in the playoffs, because they've shown that sometimes the moment is just a little too big. And like we said, no Zay Flowers tonight. Who on this Ravens offense is going to beat me outside of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? So then all I got to do is send pressure at you, because I'm not worried about any of those guys you got on the outside. Not a one of them. Not one. Zay ain't in there. Oh, I for darn sure ain't worried about any of these guys. None of them. Tylan Wallace, unproven. Rashad Bateman, still to a certain degree, unproven. Isaiah Likely, got to prove it consistently to me. Mark Andrews, oh, we know the light's too big for him in the playoffs. Anthony Miller, he just came off the practice squad. I'm not worried about him. Steven Sims, y'all just signed him. I'm not worried about him. So then, as a defensive coordinator, if I'm not worried about your receivers because you don't have that extra guy, if Zay Flowers isn't there, there's no A.J. Brown to help out. There's no Devontae Smith to help out if one of those guys is down, right? Now, like we talked about before, Bateman has potential. But at the same time, Bateman has his moments where he's up and down too. And it begs the question once again, and we're going to be asking this all off season long. Do the Ravens need one more guy? Because we said it last year with OBJ, right? The reason why OBJ was a big deal was because OBJ is OBJ until proven otherwise. That's a fact, right? You got to respect OBJ until you don't, and until he gives you a reason to not respect him, right? Same thing with Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers has proven through 2 seasons of pretty consistent play, that you got to respect Zay Flowers. But Zay Flowers got hurt in week 16. Was it week 16, week 17? Week 17, I think it was. Right? Zay Flowers got hurt in week 17. So now I'm back at the point where I defend the Ravens the same way I've always defended the Ravens. I'm going to blitz you because, number one, y'all not going to really respond to it, and y'all really ain't got the guys that can get open. Right? And sometimes the lights are just too bright for those guys. So some sort of change is going to have to be made, because you can't go into an 8th season. And do I really think that it's going to be Harbaugh going out the door? No, right? Lamar's going to be the scapegoat again because he didn't play well, right? He's going to be the scapegoat again. Even though he played well in the second half, it's still Lamar's going to be the scapegoat. He's going to be the guy they're going to blame it on. They're not going to talk about Tyler Linderbaum starting the playoff with a bad snap and then Lamar dropping the ball, proceeding to drop the ball, which makes it worse. They're not going to talk about drops by Mark Andrews. They're not going to talk about drops by some of these other guys, right? They're not going to talk about that. Derrick Henry specifically dropping it when he was open, right? They're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about going away from the running game when it's working. They're not going to talk about that, right? They're not going to talk about your team not being prepared going into this game for practically a 7th straight year. They're not going to talk about that. That's not going to be talked about. And because of that, John Harbaugh will continue to survive. And unfortunately, that possibly means, and I'm not ever really this negative, but that possibly means that the Ravens next year will come out, have a really good season once again, have all the pressure to win once again, and show up just like this again. That's probably what that means. Because sometimes, history repeats itself, right? And sometimes you have to just watch the history to know what's going to go down, right? Sometimes you have, sometimes, in order for history not to repeat itself and for generational curses to break, somebody has to break them, right? And for the Ravens, their curse right now is the fact that they are a really good regular season team. Insane, like we talked about before, historically good regular season team. But in the playoffs, at least with this iteration, with this coaching staff, with this quarterback, it's not it, right? It's not it. Something is missing. Something is missing. And something has to be said for a team that consistently shows up in their second game of the playoffs unprepared. Something has to be said. You're prepared for 17 weeks of the season now, or 18 weeks of the season, 17 playable weeks. You're prepared for those games. Now, there's some here and there that become hit or miss, where you come out a little slow, you come out a little flat. But at the same time, something has to budge. And you're playing against history right now. You're playing against what history says doesn't happen. Right? And that's a quarterback and a coach trying to win a Super Bowl past that quarterback's fifth year, right? Past that quarterback's contract extension. And something's got to give. Somebody's gonna have to look in the mirror. Like you said, why is this team never prepared when you need it most? Why? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for this team to lose in this way over and over and over again. Just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Right now, this one is a little bit more heartbreaking. Right, you're right there. And I think that's what's frustrating too. It's like, think about it like this. It's like a bubble team in the draft, right? A team that's right there. They're so close to the playoffs, but they never rebuild. They never truly rebuild, right? So they always remain a bubble team, and coaches tend to skate by because you're always a bubble team. The Ravens are the playoff version of a bubble team right now. You're just skating by because you got this you lose in a heartbreaking fashion. That means you're right there, though, right? That means if you do one or two more things better, you would win, right? But then next year you come out, you have a good regular season, you play a game similar to this, probably in the second round of your playoffs, and it ends the same way. So something's got to give. Something's got to give, y'all. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know how y'all are feeling after a tough loss to the Buffalo Bills. Oh, a game that at many times was winnable, right? At many times was winnable. At many times you missed 2-point conversions, right? Now, I understand. I'm gonna wrap up, but I understand that I get it, because a lot of people will. How can you blame coaching if John Harbaugh's not out there throwing interceptions or fumbling the ball or not catching the football or dropping the catch at the end, right? But some of this has to be confidence, right? Some of this has to be confidence. And if you're not instilling confidence in your guys for whatever reason, maybe you're not really talking to them, right? Because I mean, even in the halftime interview, the post halftime interview, Harbaugh kind of made it sound like the team talked to themselves. he kind of made that a little bit clear that the team kind of pumped each other up. They gave each other confidence, which is good, but you still got to have a coach that comes in and says, "Hey, we're one or two plays away. We're one really good drive away right now, right? That pick, it was bad, but you're right there, right? You knew the assignment on that play. You knew what to do on this play, right? It was just a missed throw. Relax, get up and go do it again. The run game's not working, but we know, Derek, you gonna get it going, right? It's not working right now, but we know, and we saw it. We know you're gonna get it going. Mark Andrews, go get on the jugs machine for a little bit. Don't they got sideline jugs machines? They got to throw the ball with somebody, something, right? Have Josh Johnson throwing the football to him as hard as he can, right? To get him used to the cold weather, get him used to the slipperiness of what the ball was going to be, because something is up. There's no way they didn't practice in these conditions too. It's in Buffalo. There's no way. But anyway, let me get out of here before I talk for far too long. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back very, very soon to talk about these Baltimore Ravens, man. But something's got to give, y'all. Something has to give. And a conversation has to be had about the Baltimore Ravens and how frustrating it's become to be the same team over and over again. There's so much potential there. It's right there. You're only a half a step away, but something's missing when you get to that biggest moment. Something is missing. But anyway, we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Be More Show. I'll see you guys next time. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like the content, and if you and let me know, like, still give the. I know we're frustrated and we're upset, but still give the video a like. As you leave your comment down below. Definitely hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Be More.